And we're on. It's the Nightmare Cabin. Welcome back, and hello, stranger. If you're new to the channel, if you've been watching the videos, and I interviewed David Gregor a few weeks ago, and I mentioned we're going to get Frank on the channel, and as promised, he is here. So, Frank, how are you?
I'm doing good, motherfuckers.
That's it. That's all I needed. Thank you. Good night.
Interview's over. I'll see you guys later.
So, yeah, how have you been? What have you been up to? And then I suppose we'll just have a general chat about your journey through death metal and start at the beginning and work back up to today. But yeah, what have you been up to lately?
I don't know, being a shut-in with the fucking pandemic. No, I actually go to work every day. So I physically have to go to work. I don't want to get into like all the COVID stuff, but what I've been doing, spending time with family when I'm not working, doing my metal reviews. I write for Teeth of the Divine, which is a magazine, an online magazine in the United States. It's run by Eric Thomas, and we have a lot of great writers. And then just constantly listening to metal, the amount of promos I get, the amount of stuff that I buy, and then doing guest vocals. And we may get into that a little bit, but this past year was a real busy year for 2020 for me, which was good. I was happy because, I guess, whenever that dries up, then, goodbye.
So, I mean, I guess I was aware of who you were, but someone sent me a message must have been a year or two ago now, when it was either Morta Skuld or Malevolent Creation, but it was one of the reviews I did liner notes for a reissue, and you mentioned me in one of your reviews, and yeah, a few people tagged and sent messages going, Frank's just, and I was like, well, that's Frank from. I didn't realize you did reviews, but yeah, that made my day, certainly.
Yeah, because I reviewed the Surface reissue from Morta Skuld.
That's the one.
And you wrote the liners to the reissue. So, and you did such a great job, and that's a great album. It was a great remaster. So I had to mention that because I was actually a fan of yours for brutalism.com. So, right? I got that right.
Yes, right. Yeah. I didn't realize you realized that.
I read your reviews all the time. And, people that are respecting the scene, the way they write, sometimes that'll make me go towards that review of that album, and then I'll pick it up because I like the way you wrote it and you described it. So, I've been following you for years, actually.
Awesome, man. That means a lot. I didn't realize that. I mean, I guess the same thing is what you did, really. I mean, I was in bands. I kind of stopped around the time I hit 30, and I was always reading magazines, even from a teenager, and watching videos on YouTube, and just sort of wanted to. I thought, well, I can put my foot in this. I've got stuff to say, or certain opinions that I think are a little different, and always try to keep the attitude of write like you're talking to the person. So don't. And that's always my big buzz. That's always if someone says I bought that album because of your review, that's my, take home from it. When was it the same thing with you?
So I'm trying to think, it was probably about 8 years ago. I was friends with somebody on Facebook, and they said, Frank, I think that you would actually be good at writing. And I used to actually, when I was younger, like in high school and middle school, I used to write for the school paper. And you have all the school spirit stuff, and you have people writing about what's going on at the school. And here's me in like the metalhead category writing all metal reviews. So to get back into it, to be like more official, was something that was really cool. So I got put in touch with Craig Hogan, who writes for and owns the site allabouttherock.uk.
Oh, Craig, yeah.
And Craig's a great guy.
Did a couple of articles for them as well, yeah.
So I started writing for him and doing interviews as well, interviewing a wide variety of different types of musicians. And then another friend of mine, Graham Landers, who used to own Deep Send Records, he said, Frank, I think that you would also, your writing style would fit with Teeth of the Divine, right, run by my friend Eric Thomas. So then I started writing for Eric. And then and I was doing interviews and writing reviews for Eric as well. And then it was just too much because I had two sites that, and you know, as you know, hey, we do this on our own time. You know, we're not getting, because for the sheer love of the music and the scene. So I wound up stopping to write for All About the Rock, and now I strictly write for Teeth of the Divine. But Craig is still a close friend. He's a great guy. Actually, he and I just did a Facebook video chat recently, and he's just he and I keep in touch quite a lot. And so my whole thing is, it's about supporting the scene, supporting the bands, and because of my history with, you know, with Internal Bleeding and doing guest vocals and things like that, knowing what it's like to tour, knowing what it's like to be in the studio, knowing how hard and the blood, sweat, and tears that goes into actually writing and recording an album with people, a lot of other people don't understand. I don't pan albums. I really don't. Like, you know, if something is not really like, you know, jiving with me, I will maybe give the band a few helpful hints in ways of maybe improving. Maybe this could be done better. Maybe this was a production issue. Maybe there's some songwriting stuff. But in terms of like, you know, completely like, you know, panning an album and a band and just saying, this sucks, this is a piece of shit. While I do know that there's a lot of bands and albums out there that some of those releases maybe fall into that category, sometimes will shy away from even doing that review because I do know, you know, how difficult it is sometimes for the things to come together to record an album.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I've got no pleasure from slamming an album. And I mean, I've wrote some difficult reviews, but I've always kind of took a step back and gone, right, if the band was here now and he, you know, got in my face because of what I wrote, would I stand by it? Would I go, well, no, hold on a minute? And I think I've always tried and kept it constructive. But yeah, generally, if an album, if something I don't like or something, I do try to, well, I just won't bother with it. And it's the same with the YouTube channel that I'm doing now. I won't ever put anything on there that was, I just don't see the point. That could have been energy spent on an album you do like. And I think what I try and do is maybe, hopefully, I do things that people do know. So then that hooks people in. So then when I go, right, here's something you might not have heard, they're more likely to pick it up then. But I know what you mean as well. I was writing for pretty much anyone that would take me at one point. And it was, I was just getting to the point where I just wanted to put on what I wanted. I just wanted to play a Malevolent Creation album or some Slayer or just something I knew. I just wanted to listen to something I knew, you know. You end up, do you ever make a list of the albums you've got to review? So sometimes you get so many to download that you just, I don't even know. So then you have to write them all down and tick them off as you go. And
yeah, I'm kind of a geek in how I keep my stuff. I'm really organized. So how I am with work, I've kind of like put that into place in terms of reviews. So I have on my music, my Apple Music on my computer, I have digital folders for reviews, and then I keep stuff on my iPhone as well. And I'm really diligent in terms of like keeping in touch with the band after I do a review and after it's gone live. I'll send it to them. I'll also share it with on my own page. I'll share it with the record label as well, and a few maybe other Facebook I'm in to share it as well, just to push, you know, people to that review, and hopefully that, you know, they not only can they read it, but then they go to the site and they see the other reviews that the other great writers on Teeth of the Divine are writing, as well as checking out the band, of course, most importantly, and then dipping into the label and seeing what other types of bands, if this was a good band that they liked on this one certain label, well, maybe they're going to check out a bunch of other bands on that label. So that's kind of how I do it in terms of like the full support going all the way through. And yeah, no, I do keep a list, but again, there's a lot of writers for Teeth of the Divine, and you know, everybody wants to do certain types of reviews. Maybe I want to do some certain types of reviews, and we'll just try and work it out amongst ourselves. And I don't know. You know what I want to do right now? I want to do in 60 seconds. I want to name, I'm just going to name the bands that have put out great albums for 2020. Because I know we're getting towards the end of the year, and I'm eventually going to have to do a best of for Teeth of the Divine. And my head is spinning with all the different types of releases. Because I want to say that I've probably listened to over 1,000 albums this year. A lot of people that don't write don't realize, and no fault of their own, but how much music is out there. I mean, it's not like it was like 25 years ago. You got, because of technology, because of music sharing, and it's wonderful. It's absolutely incredible, but it's also overwhelming sometimes, as you know.
Yeah.
It's like, wow, I didn't realize that, there's bands in Slovakia. That's so many bands over there. So I'm just going to kind of do really quick. I'm just going to name certain types of bands. These are some albums that have like really hit me really hard, these bands. So 1, 2, 3, I'm going to go. Morta Skuld, After, Amenius, Angerot, Godin, Warbringer, Verthebal, The Troops of Doom, Porta Niagara, Azura Moat, Beast of Revelation, Cadaver, Consumption, Ingested, Cytotoxin, Voracious Scourge, Catalepsy, Defeated Sanity, Wolves Den, Wormhole, Escotrillium, Ferocity, Floresters, Grendel's Sister, Hail Spirit Noir, Codex Arazo, Profanity, Pestiver, Origin of Infinity, Onslaught, Night, Nicorech, Nicrovault, Nicrot, Mork Grinnig, Malacorpitan, Macabre, the new Macabre, Oof, Lady Beast, Chthonic Cervix, Izame, Jupiter, Iron Flame Incantation, Napalm Death, Henry Kane, Ossuary Anex, Ton, Puterion. My mouth is getting like tired. Second to Sun, Sepulchral Curse, Skeletal Remains, Skeleton, Sinister Fluids. Looking forward to the new Aspect, Soul Burn, Of Feather and Burn. Just got the album yesterday. Unbelievable. Sojourner, Spellberg, Sapruga, The System of a Down EP that just came out. Their first few songs in 15 years. I fucking love it. Thetis, Thanatos, Ulcerate, Inurnment.
I heard a few in there. There was a few in there. Troops of Doom. That's good. EP. Who else?
Yeah, that was I'd seen it, and it was the former guitarist from old school Sepultura, and one of my good friends Costas from Repulse Echo was saying, Frank, he's like, we're gonna actually put this out. Exactly, he's like, we're gonna put this out on cassette. So he sent me the files, and I'm gonna be reviewing that soon. Man, this is like total like 1988, 1989, like vintage Sepultura with like mixture of like morbid visions, and I'm like fucking thrilled. I'm like, wow, because
it's better than anything Sepultura have done in decades.
Yeah, Sepultura, I'm definitely in the Max Cavalera camp. And when Max, when he was no longer in the band, I followed Soulfly for the first several albums, like, the first one that came out after Max, Against. I thought that was good. The Roarback album, I thought that the Roarback album is actually the best Sepultura album after Max. But really, when I go back to Sepultura, I'm strictly listening to the stuff with Max.
I think with Sepultura, they've not ever done a classic album with Derek, like a real undeniable. But my thing is, it's not Derek's fault. I think Derek is a phenomenal vocalist and frontman.
He's a good thrash singer.
They just haven't written anything that's catchy. And I think Max was the one that came up with the ideas, but he didn't have quite the technicality to put those ideas across. Mm-hmm. That's where Andreas came in. Yep. And I think it took Max a few years to find another guitarist that he could spark things off. And he's found that with this guy he's got now. Is it Mark Rizzo? He's on all the songs.
Yeah, he's a great guitarist.
Until he found him, he was struggling. And I think Andreas he hasn't found that person to replace him to find that spark off, because everything he writes to me just falls flat. But
I don't think it's going to happen.
Yeah, none of it's Derek's fault.
Yeah, I think that ship has sailed. I think it would be really nice, because when we look at like certain types of classic bands, like wish lists, like what bands would we have liked to have gotten back together for a reunion, but it's no longer possible. Obviously, one of the bands that comes to mind for me is Pantera. If people can go back and forth, they used to be power metal, they stole Exhorder sound. I don't give a shit, because when Cowboys from Hell came came out in 1990, I was an instant fan. I saw them on the Far Beyond Driven tour with Prong in New York, and Pantera were phenomenal. And Rhino Records have put out like a whole bunch of like reissues. The recent reissue of Reinventing the Steel is phenomenal. But obviously that ship has sailed, unfortunately, with the Abbott brothers no longer with us. With Sepultura, hey, the guys are still alive. They could still kind of pull us together, but I guess maybe egos, maybe they're happy in their own camps. But like what I was saying, when we look at Sepultura, with Andres definitely went into more of the technicality aspects of writing, and he's a great musician, he's a great songwriter, but I think he got away from like what was Sepultura, which was aggressive, pissed off, punch in your face type of shit. Who knows? It probably will never happen, but can you fucking imagine? It was the same thing with same thing with years ago they were offered $100,000 to play a festival over in Europe, and the band had splintered off, and Tom at that point was really jaded and was starting to form the Triptychon, and then unfortunately that'll never happen. Mark Eric Ain, he passed away a few years ago, unfortunately. So it's just like, maybe it's like this time when we're living in a shit time with a fucking pandemic, that people can kind of bring themselves together, kind of maybe forgive one another for some of the past injustices. And I'm not just talking about the music industry. I'm just talking about whether it's, people in your own lives, kind of like look at some of the things that are really important and maybe get back to that to try and, you reunite.
Yeah. Yeah. You mentioned Pantera as well, and this is something I want to ask you. If you've noticed this, when did it become so trendy for metalers to bash Pantera? Because,
well, I'll say this: when I was with Internal Bleeding, we would always Chris would always come up with like creative ways to like market, like when we were playing a show, and we would have like old Pantera albums, like the power metal albums, or like and print out flyers and be like. Yeah. And just like, hey, this is what they used to be. Fuck them. Buy an Internal Bleeding shirt. But it's sometimes it's you had the rumorville about them like poaching the Exhorder sound for their own benefit, and then when bands and there's some scenesters or people, some influencers in the scene, if they see a band that's getting a little too popular, they like to kind of tear them down, and But if you listen to, let's say we talk about the 5 core thrash albums that Pantera put out, from Cowboys to Reinventing the Steel, they never lit up on the gas pedal. Listen to all those albums. I mean, they're heavy. They got tons of groove. They got tons of fast songs, Pissed Off, and that's a lot of noise that I just when people will slag them and pull them down. It's just I kind of like Pantera. Maybe you're upset because you never played in front of like 50 or 100,000 people. I've seen them in front of large crowds, and they're wonderful. So they were, excellent.
So let's talk about the your humble beginnings.
Okay.
So you were in New York, and you joined Internal Bleeding. How did you? Because they put out a few demos before you joined, and you end up being on the debut album, Veracious Contempt. Just how did you tell us how you sort of came into getting into bands, getting into doing vocals, and then how you ended up joining the band?
Well, I used to go to shows with these 2 friends of mine in Long Island, New York, and they were friends with Bill. Unfortunately, Bill Tolley, the drummer from Internal Bleeding, is no longer around with us. But so I got to know Bill really early on, and in between band sets, when we would see like whether it was like early old school Suffocation, Pyrexia, Embryonic Death, Human Remains, I'm growling in between songs, and Bill would always say, "Frank, man, you got a really sicko voice. You should sing for a band." He's like, "I'm getting ready to, he was talking about getting into this band, Internal Bleeding. I was in college. I was just like, Bill, I was like, man, that's really nice. I was like, I can't see myself in a band, although it was always my dream to be in a band. I just never thought it was a possibility. So then I graduated from college, and, what better thing to do with a 4-year degree than, join a death metal band that you don't make any money in. So I went to the record store, and my favorite record store, Slip Disc, and they always had a glass box, and in there was bands ads. and I already knew the band. I knew Chris. I bought the Invocation of Evil demo, and it said, we're looking for a new vocalist. We're about to have our demo come out, and we're looking for somebody that can come in, join the band. You need to be able to tour, and looking for a summer tour. So it was in 1994. I called Chris up, and he came over to the house. The Perpetual Degradation demo wasn't even out yet. And he said, Frank, I need you to learn a song. He was like, this is the song. And it was Prophet of the Blasphemies. I had to learn that song. And it was the recording off of Perpetual Degradation. And he's like, I kind of want you to emulate Bill's vocals, but, do what comes natural. So I had to learn, he gave me the lyrics. Boom. I go to the practice. I think it was like a week later. And here I am. I got a job. I'm obviously living with my parents. That's all I'm doing downstairs, just trying to growl, practicing, getting hoarse because I'm not used to doing that. And I went to the practice, and it went pretty well. I mean, they punished me. We fucking, okay, let's do it again. Okay, sounds good, Frank. Let's do it again. Hey, Frank, can you hold out that growl a little bit longer? Hey, can you do that enunciation a little bit like this? Yeah. I was like, oh, Jesus Christ, is this what it's going to be like? Fuck, okay, fine. So, and then they were like, Chris was like, hey, we want you to come back again. This is the next song that you're going to learn. It's Anointed in Servitude. So we go back home, learn Anointed, go back in, and they tell me really after they saw me the first time trying out, they knew that they wanted me, but they wanted to see what my dedication was going to be. So that's why they had me go back, try and learn another song, come back, and just to see, hey, is this guy even going to show up? So
yeah.
Did Anointed in Servitude, did it like a whole bunch of times. I remember Anthony Miola, the other guitarist, kept on pushing me. Man, that sounds sicker, but Rini, you gotta hit that growl's gotta come out longer, come out. And it's just like doing it. But it actually pushed me, and then basically they kind of gave me. It was like an impromptu interview outside the rehearsal space, and it was Prevelis and it was Guy Marseille from Pyrexia. And they were just asking me a bunch of questions. And then Chris is just like, he's like, dude, man, you're the new fucking Internal Bleeding singer. I was like, what? And then the next time I came back to rehearsal, I had shaved my head because I used to have a shaved head in college as well. So this look was not really, back in 1994 for a death metal singer, wasn't really, it wasn't widespread, let's put it that way. And so then, we did a little summer tour. It's interesting. If I would have been in the band a little bit earlier, then I probably would have been the vocalist on Perpetual Degradation. But I was in college, and Bill knocked it out when he did the vocals on that. And then when we played the Milwaukee Metal Fest, that was actually my third show with the band. That was pretty fucking hardcore. 2,500 people playing in front of. But Pavement Records were in the crowd, and they really liked our performance. And then we wound up getting a contract with them, and we wound up going on to record, Voracious Contempt. We had a major tour with that album, with the 6 Feet Under Immolation tour, all across the United States and North America. It put us on the map hugely, just playing shows all the time. And then eventually, I was on the second album as well, The Extinction of Benevolence. And then I departed after that. But no, it was, I just kept on practicing. Joe, I could keep on talking all fucking day. There's so many things. I'll give you some insight. There's a lot of things that people don't they've seen me in interviews. I did a video interview for Metal Invader recently, which is Custis. It was all about the 25-year anniversary for race.
I read that. Yeah. Good article.
And all of the video stuff that I was, when I'm talking about a lot of things, I saved some tidbits for you. So after we recorded Voracious, when we kind of knew that there was a tour that was going to be on the horizon, I started having problems with my vocals. And it was just, it was weird. We'd be practicing, and then I would be losing my voice. And I was noticing that I wasn't, there was like, my power wasn't there. I was like, well, this is weird. I was getting scared because I didn't want, like, for health reasons, I was like, I hope it's nothing serious. I hope it's something that's easily correctable. So I went to a ear, nose, and throat specialist, and they stuck a fucking tube all the way down my fucking throat with a camera. Oh, it was terrible. But you had my vocal cords were up on the screen, and the doctor said, "What do you do with your vocal cords?"
This is the thing, and explaining to like a doctor or something like how half of them don't even know what death metal is.
Right.
So when you explain, yeah,
exactly. And well, so he's asking me these questions. Obviously, I can't answer, but because I'm like, what am I going to do? So he said your vocal cords are unnaturally large. He's like, maybe you're a singer. He's like, if you're a singer, that explains it. He's like, the irritation, that's what's going on with you. He's like, you have a post-nasal drip, and that's irritating your vocal cords. So then he took the fucking thing, the pipe out of my throat, and I told him what I do. He's like, okay, you're all right. He's like, I've never heard of death metal. He's like, yeah. He's like, this is what's
especially in 1995, yeah.
Right? Yeah. He's like, this is what's going on with you. You don't know how to sing. I was like, well, thanks a lot there, doc. But he was like, you actually need to learn how to sing. He's like, because what you're doing is you're singing all with your throat. He's like, my recommendation is get a vocal coach. I was like, okay. So I was like, well, thank you. There's nothing like to worry about in terms of like health wise. He's like, no. He's like, but this is what's going to help you out. So I then started looking up vocal coaches. You've probably heard of the singer Tony Bennett, old school singer. I wound up.
He's not a secret death metal singer, is he?
No, it was his vocal coach. So I went to Tony Bennett's
really?
Yeah, I went, and he had a nice house. I went downstairs in the basement, and he had all these gold records up, and it was all. I mean, he's an older guy, and it was a legitimate studio space, and it was really nice. And he had told me to bring the album because I was.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, when I was talking, he was like, he's like, I'm gonna need you to explain that to me. So I was like, okay. So I get in there. He's got the microphone up there. He's like, all right, Frank, do what you do. So then I started singing. He's like, oh my God. So he's like, so we spent about an hour. He's like, leave me with the album. And then he's like, I want you to go to a music store and I want you to pick up the sheet music for the Beatles Yesterday. I was like, why? He's like, because I'm going to teach you how to sing and I'm going to teach you how to sing the Beatles. I said, okay. I had a good vibe from him, Joe, so I trusted him. So I went, bought the sheet music, left him with the Voracious Contempt album. Again, it was the only one that I had at the time. I was like, you better not fucking lose that. He's like, I'm not going to lose it. So I came back and he said that a lot of people at that time were trying to sing like Alanis Morissette. And I think maybe around that time, her album, maybe it was Jagged Little Pill. Maybe that came out around that time. He's like, Frank, I can't stand those type of vocals. He was like, everybody, all these people want to sing like this one lady. And I put your CD in and I am kind of blown away, Frank. I didn't know that somebody could actually do that with their vocals, but you are going to ruin your vocals. And I was explaining to him that we had a tour. And, even when we weren't touring, playing in these different areas, you're going from the East Coast to the Midwest to the South. Now we're going to be going up and down, all over the place. So he taught me how to sing Yesterday. He taught me how to sing the Beatles Yesterday properly. And he taught me the main thing was breathing. And he gave me all these breathing exercises. He did not come cheap. He was expensive. But I know that man is no longer alive. While I have a lot of death metal influences with great vocalists that I've looked up to, past and present, I owe much of my success to that man. May he rest in peace. Because then, at that time, I got a cassette with all the breathing exercises. Before we played a show, I put those in. I did all those breathing exercises. He was the one that helped me learn how to do. I learned how to harness my air to the point where, when you listen to the second album, the Extinction of Benevolence. Look, I got the original still with the fucking the price tag on it.
Hold it up a little for me. Just tilt it like that. Other way, yeah, from the bottom. That's it. That's more clearer. Yeah, awesome.
So I do 2-minute growls on this album. And so then that kind of, even on Voracious, I was doing long growls, but I still remember those breathing exercises. And it helped me out when I was torn with IB 2 years ago. But I've been doing like fucking like minute long growls for like 25 plus years, and he really helped me out. And I learned how to create more power and everything. And so that's a little tidbit into my some of my vocal experiences.
That's incredible. That's a fucking awesome story. I got vocal lessons myself at a local studio where we used to rehearse. The guy that run it used to teach vocals and guitar, and I did a few lessons with him. And he taught me Let It Be. Funny enough.
Okay.
Because he says with every line, he was telling me how to project my voice. Because you're not singing louder, you're just throwing it. So it's like, so when I find myself in times of trouble, we're going to aim for here. Mother Mary speaks to me. You're going to go like to this line.
Right.
Speaking words of wisdom, let it be, and let it be. You're going to. He says, now every line you sing, I'm going to take like 2 spaces back, and you're going to hit me, and that's projecting your voice. He explained all that to me. He couldn't get behind the screaming thing, though. He just.
I understand. Yeah. And even
I understand when you said he told me to go get a Beatles album, that made I smiled then, because that's obviously something they.
Exactly. And when I was coming back into the touring with IB a few years ago, I was really concerned about, because I do a lot of guest vocals and stuff, but I'm a little older now, to be able to do touring again and be able to have all that stamina. I mean, I wound up losing 45 pounds for the tour, but I had a few people in my corner that were helping me out with some things. And it's one thing to start growling again and learning all those breathing exercises, but to some of my friends, one of my good friends, Brian from the band Kill Everything out in Texas, he was like, Frankie, he's like, why don't you go start singing some other songs? Like, and then one of my friends from New York, Mike, were just like, start singing some old heavy metal songs, because they know I'm into older heavy metal. And Iron Maiden's my favorite band of all time. So I started singing by myself, and in the car, I started singing old Iron Maiden songs, old Black Sabbath songs, like vintage Sabbath, vintage Iron Maiden, old Quiet Riot songs, and it just was expanding my vocals. So while I'm getting older, my vocals are actually getting better, and I'm learning how to experiment a lot differently and do things, and it's really cool. I don't stop learning.
That's awesome, man. So you recently did a tour with Internal Bleeding again, didn't you? But
yeah,
it was kind of like Bruce coming back into Iron Maiden a little bit, but they had a new album to promote, and you was like, no, this isn't a reunion. This is just, I'm just helping out. And there was a bit of
So what happened was, it was I'll tell you exactly when it was. It was in April of 2018. Chris Pervelis, he texted me, and he's like, Frank, he's like, I want to be able to talk to you on the phone soon. He's like, I got something to ask you. I think you may be interested in it. I immediately knew what it was going to be. I already knew that I was going to be on, I was on let's see, you already saw the Extinction of Benevolence. Let's show you some other vintage albums. There's the Voracious, that's still sealed. Obviously, I got unsealed copies. And then I guested on that album on 2 songs. And then the other album, which was coming out at that time in 2018, Corrupting Influence.
So you always stayed good, in touch with the band. You was always in good terms. There was never like a fallout or anything like that then, no?
I mean, no, I wouldn't say necessarily. I moved on from the band years ago because of a career, and because I moved away, and I was no longer in New York, and I was working shift work, and to continue to come up to New York all the time to practice and to play shows, it was just getting to the point where it was just too much, and I couldn't keep on taking that time off while I was very young in establishing the career that I'm still currently in. So no, Chris and I, we reconnected years ago, and obviously with Bill's passing, I was up there, and it was a very tough time for us, but we got through it together. And So like I said, in 2018, I called him up. I was like, okay, what do you got on the table? And he told me that they had this tour with Decrepit Birth and Arsis, a major tour, and that the singer Joe at the time was unable to do the entire the tour. He's like, it's a month-long tour, Frank. You pick 2 weeks, whether you want the first 2 weeks, the last 2 weeks, whatever you want, you got it. I decided to go with the first 2 weeks. Turns out that Joe was unable to do any of the tour. Then I was able to. Now I had a ton of leave. I still have, I have a lot of leave because of my longevity, and I don't take a lot of leave to begin with at my job. My work would not give me the whole month off, and even if I would have taken that whole month off, I would have still came back with even more leave than still the majority of people in the department. But whatever, I was able to push because I can be like a battering ram sometimes. If I want something, ask the missus upstairs. She knows that. My work knows it. So I kept on pushing and pushing and pushing. I got like 3.5 weeks off. So I did the majority of the tour. And so it was coming in to help out, but also on Corrupting Influence, I'm on the song Litany of Insincerity. There's the end part of the song, the band had like more of like the Extinction of Benevolence vibe, and Chris was like, Frank, we left all that ending for you. You can write the lyrics. This is the lyrical theme. You can write the lyrics and do all the vocals and do all the growls. So I did that. It came out great. Of course, I threw a motherfucker in there because that's what I do. And it was great. So I was going up and down, from where I live up to New York, practicing. It was a really special time as well because the first annual Bill Tolley like kind of like memoriam for him, they had it at a place on Long Island, the Plattdeutsch, that I used to go to for baseball award ceremonies when I used to play baseball when I was young, and I performed with the band. It's on YouTube. I did Aftermath off of Imperium, which is one of the guest vocals I did off of that album. So I did that whole song. And that was cool. That was like my first like full live experience doing a full live song with the band in front of like the fire department and their families. And because I've done guest vocals for them like live, but this was great. And it was also like a month before the tour. And then the tour was the beginning of October of 2018. And it was Decrepit Birth, Arsis, Us, Pyrexia, Angel Maker, and Within Destruction. And it was phenomenal. I mean, there was some mishaps on the tour with Decrepit Birth, with the singer getting injured. But we made it through. It was awesome. It was really special. A lot of the old school people saw me again. I hadn't seen them in a long time. Brought them out. But then all the new people, newer fans, younger fans, as the audience is a little younger now, who knew about me with Internal Bleeding, liked my work, seen all the YouTube videos, and now knowing that I was coming back, they were there, and there was a lot of things because, Joe, my banter back then in the 90s was just like, come on, motherfuckers, I want to see you rip your fucking heads off. I want to see you rip these fucking off. Motherfuckers, I want to see body bags being carried out here. So I would be saying all that stuff. And Chris was like, Frank, the crowd nowadays, maybe they're a little bit more sensitive. They may not be used to that. This is what they're used to. So while I was practicing all the time up in New York, down where I'm living, when I would go to shows, I was now looking at the live experience, less of a fan, more of looking at it from the band's perspective. And I was like, you know something? It seems like it is a little bit more difficult than it was in the 90s to get people more, getting going in the pit and things like that. So I was looking at some of the techniques that some of the bands were doing. However, I am Frank Rini. I am who I am for like Popeye. I am who I am, So some of my friends were like, Frank, you just got to do what you got to do. So I incorporated some other things like, come on, I want to see your horns, motherfuckers. Let's, I did a little bit more of that, but then it was back to the old banter, and the crowd, they ate it up. The young kids loved it. They weren't used to having the singer go in the pit like I used to do. Got the microphone, singing in the pit, throwing them around, picking these young kids up and fucking tossing them like a bunch of like bean bags. And they would come over to me like, Frank, throw me again. So I pick them up and get over here, you motherfucker. And then I'd get back down there and singing and smashing them. And it was wonderful. It was great.
Awesome, man. It's yeah. One thing as well. I really want to get into the just as well for people that aren't aware. Bill Tolley was the drummer for Internal Bleeding all through the band's career, and tragically died whilst attending a firefight. He was a firefighter. You know, that was his job outside the band. And I remember this coming up in Blabbermouth and all that. I remember we spoke about it on the metal show with Gully and Joe at the time as well. At that time, we used to go through Blabbermouth, just spoke about what went through in the week. And yeah, just wanted to, you know, salute Bill and rest in peace, gone but not forgotten. And yeah, for those that aren't aware, definitely look into him. The guy was a hero. So with Internal Bleeding, where they kind of fall, I guess, you know, Pyrexia, you got the technical death metal, but especially today, Internal Bleeding.
Pyrexia is technical? Pyrexia is not technical death metal. They're brutal death metal. No, Pyrexia. I mean, their first album in 1993,
yeah,
A Mockery. That's one of the most brutal and best death metal albums. I mean, they got a little bit more technical as times went on. I wouldn't put them in the same category as, let's say, like a Suffocation or a Decrepit Birth. I still think
let me bear with me a minute. So you've got brutal death metal.
No, I don't have the
this
time.
Death metal, thingy death metal, and then we've got these other two things. You've got deathcore, and now we've got slamcore. And a lot of the things, especially now when they say, "Oh, brutal death metal," you go, "Well, what's brutal now that wasn't brutal?" But a lot of bands that do come up is Internal Bleeding and Suffocation. Now, I'll give you what I think, and I want to see if you agree. I think a lot of what they call slamcore and deathcore and the brutal thing is in New York. You had the New York hardcore scene.
Right.
I think tell me if I'm right or wrong. I think with Internal Bleeding in the early days and Suffocation and Pyrexia, I think they tried to give a death metal show. So what was going on with Florida or out in, you can all argue over who started it, but obviously in England we had Napalm Death and Carcass, Bolt Thrower.
Sweden was Entombed.
Florida Death and Morbid Angel. I think New York tried to do, they wanted to give the death metal music, but incorporated a hardcore show. And I think that's where your deathcores and your brutal death metal and slamcore or whatever else you've got today. Seeing those bands today, I think that's what they try to do. They try to take the hardcore show with the death metal. Well, no, the hardcore interaction. Like they want to have the hardcore crowd.
Okay.
With the death metal. Do you agree or?
You may be onto something. Whatever you're drinking over there, keep on drinking it. Yeah, well, you want to, with New York, you always hear, it's a tough place to live. I mean, not every place in New York. You go up to New York, upstate New York, it's like the boonies. It's a country. But where we were from, definitely, growing up at the hardcore scene. I mean, one of my favorite bands is Old Agnostic Front. I mean, the Victim in Pain EP, I know that EP backwards and forwards. So I think that while metal and hardcore were still separate, with Internal Bleeding, it was always, since there was more of a built-in groove, where hardcore is, that's what hardcore is. Hardcore is a lot of groove, and it's a lot, it's really good music to see live, because you and I both know. I'll give you an example. Like, some of the atmospheric black metal bands, let's say they're called, God, there's so many different genres, my fucking head's explode. But there's atmospheric folk black metal, let's just say. Some of those bands, like one of the bands I mentioned, Sojourner, awesome. It's incredible to hear on an album. I don't know how that would translate in a live environment. Now, maybe for the European crowds and stuff, they like that a little bit more, but I can tell you something like that played in front of a New York crowd, where New Yorkers would got a tendency sometimes to be a little less forgiving. would bore a lot of people, except for like the hardcore nerds that love the band and got the patches and the stickers and everything. They'd be like, "Oh my god, it's the greatest thing!" But for the variety, the majority of the crowd, and I can speak, going back in the day and even present, that bands that have the music that moves people in a live atmosphere, it just comes across better because you have that group participation. So with Internal Bleeding, because of I had a strong hardcore background to begin with. I loved Agnostic Front. I loved DRI. I loved the Cro-Mags. Some of these bands, I just kind of like when because back then there was no YouTube or anything, but you would see these magazines. I'd go to get all these zines and you'd see what the crowd was like, and I was like, so that's what I modeled when I would practice downstairs in my parents' basement. That's what I was doing, man. I'm like pretending to sing, and I'm just like just slamming and doing all this types of like moshing and you name it. And
like you mentioned before, the singer would be in the crowd.
Absolutely.
A hardcore band.
Exactly.
The singer wouldn't even be on the stage. You just go straight into the crowd. Yeah. Just spend the whole, yeah.
Right. Because I looked at it like this, let's say you're the fan. I'm the person in the band. We're the same. So that's how Internal Bleeding kind of connected with the fan base in terms of like, it wasn't like we're up here and you're down there. Yeah. So I always looked at it like I'm going to bring this hardcore atmosphere into the band. And really, as soon as we played live, that's what I was doing. So that even when, touring with them a few years ago, I don't know any other way. I'm going to go into the pit at certain points and just sing with, and the people, they love it. The fans love it. I love it. And it brings a hardcore atmosphere. And it was interesting because we did play with hardcore bands back in the day as well. I can tell you, man, we played with one of the biggest bands that were coming out at that time. We played with Life of Agony. It was a huge show on Long Island. And we opened up for them, and River Runs Red is one of my favorite albums still to this day. Love that debut album from Life of Agony.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
We went on before them, and we had our local fans there, obviously, but there was still a huge Life of Agony crowd that were never privy to an Internal Bleeding set, and the pit was outrageous. It was outrageous. It was a fucking bloodbath. It was amazing. They loved it. It was great.
Yeah, that I just couldn't see that happening today. I don't know. I think back then people did have their own sort of. People were a bit more unique. Maybe there were less bands. I don't know, but yeah, the Eternal Bleeding doing a gig with Life of Agony sounds fucking awesome.
Well, and, like you said,
and Life of Agony are heavier than a lot of people give them credit for because of the way Nina now is on stage, because he was always he was never he wasn't a typical hardcore frontman back then. He really sang and
yeah, it was different because the music was like this hardcore crossover metal that was brutal and heavy, and he had more of like a melodic voice, but still very powerful. And maybe because you were asking, you were saying like, I don't know what it is. Was it because there's more? Is there more bands nowadays? What could it be? This is what I'll say for back then. Now, I still love the scene today. I mean, I love all the new bands. I review all these obscure bands. I'm in contact with these bands. They ask me to do vocals. I absolutely love it. But back then, you're talking about the blueprint of that type of music. So when you're talking about Eternal Bleeding, when you're talking about Pyrexia, Suffocation, talking about Death, Cannibal Corpse, Morbid Angel, Entombed, Bolt Thrower, Napalm Death. I'm kind of throwing all the different types of genres. Yeah. Dark Throne, all those bands where the blueprints were still just being written. Then it got bastardized to the point where, as the time went on and the years went on, hey, all these albums have come out from those bands, and then all these other bands that are copying those bands are copying the stuff from the purveyors of those types of scenes. And does it water down the approach? Not necessarily, although I've heard straight ripoffs of other bands that it's just like, I closed my eyes. I was like, I can't tell if that's like Gore Guts or if that's this type of band, because it sounds like fucking Gore Guts, but or Incantation. There's so many Incantation worship bands.
Oh God, yeah.
And some of them do a great job. It sounds amazing, but like I can name a bunch of bands that have come out with those types of albums this year. However, that new Incantation album that came out, the Sect of Vile Divinities, it still shreds them all to pieces.
Yeah,
So
yeah. It's like this is a good album, but sorry, folks, you're a young band. I know you're just trying, but
yeah,
this is all that's good. This is basically just going to tick me over until the real thing comes out, and then it's going to be like, yeah, you know.
And it's like, so that's why sometimes I crave. I've over the last several years, I've definitely expanded my musical horizon with the extreme metal, with getting into some more of the black metal, atmospheric, and things like that, because it just it offers different soundscapes, different types of musical things. There's some different types of originality. Because it's still very, very difficult for bands to remain original, because you have, like I said, I've listened to over 1,000 albums this year. That's fucking ludicrous. That's probably probably not even like half of what's been fucking released in 2020. And it's a shame. It's really a shame with 2020 because of the whole pandemic, because all these albums, some of these bands base a lot of their stuff on touring and playing shows, because when you push that merch and you push that your swag at these shows, that's how the band can get by and they make a little bit of money. Or some bands that thrive on that to make a living. These albums that came out in 2020, I'm sorry to say, they're dead in the water, unfortunately, because there's no touring. There's not. So it's like, I've spent a fair amount of money during this pandemic actually buying merchandise from some of my favorite bands, and some of these distros that I'm really close with. This lady out in California, Jennifer, she's phenomenal with getting me some shirts of these obscure bands, and she's just a wonderful person. And so I've been buying a bunch of merch to help out these bands, but at the end of the day, without the touring, these albums unfortunately aren't going to really go much anywhere, because you seeing some of these tours that are lining up for 2021, and I'm pretty sure that they may get canceled. The band Ghost, which I'm a really big fan of Ghost, they're really smart, and they're smart for a lot of reasons, but the new album is already recorded. And the singer, Tobias, he went on record. He's like, listen, we need to tour with the support for this album. So we're going to delay this album until the end of 2021, because we don't feel that the touring is going to be able to actually get into play until the end of 2021 or 2022. I absolutely think that that's one of the smartest decisions. I would say for bands, if you're going to be recording albums right now, I would say push that off for a year. I would really, because I don't see touring coming back really until 2022 with the way things are. If I look across America right now, I know people that have owned clubs. If you can't play at a club, then where can you play? Because a lot of these clubs have gone belly up because of the pandemic. It's so incredible.
Well, exactly. I mean,
it's so sad.
And, like, one of the venues I would go to is the Underworld in London, where it's downstairs in a pub. You go down the stairs, down this corridor, and boom, you're all in this basement. How are you going to do that?
It's not going to happen.
I mean, personally, I think I've been going there since I was 16, and I've been in the toilets. I'm immune to it anyway. I caught it 10 years ago. Anything I caught in the Underworld, by going there since I was a teenager, I'm immune to it all anyway. And I suppose you could say the same about CBGBs or something like that, even though it's shut now.
Hey, we played at CBGBs.
I did go. Luckily enough, I had been to CBGBs before they closed. So, but yeah, I think a lot of these venues, I'm just saying, we're all going, why is it? You seen the toilets in these places? Fucking.
Yeah.
No,
right. Yeah. I know that, but if when you have these festivals,
so everyone's going to stand 2 meters apart? Yeah, good luck with that. It's not going to work, is it?
It's really, I don't see, until there's like some sort of a vaccine that's widespread. I really don't see any touring coming out until like really 2022. here in the United States with these numbers are increasing so rapidly, and they're increasing overseas as well. I just think for the safety of everybody. And hey, I've been on tour multiple times. I've been to different states, and you're crammed into vans and you're hanging out. Everybody gets sick on a tour. You all get a cold. It's called the tour cold. Some get a little bit worse than others. The last tour, we all kind of got like the sniffles. Provelis got a little bit sicker towards the end of the tour. But because you're in close quarters with people, and then you're playing shows. You're not getting a lot of sleep. You got people from all over coming to these shows. Dude, man, I'm going to tell you, man, I really don't see touring coming to 2022. I would really strongly advise bands that got recording stuff in the beginning of 2021. Dude, man, and especially if some of your bread and butter is with the touring, I would push that off till the end of 2021. Because of some of the things, I got my ear to the ground all the time with health officials as well as people in the music scene. And it's as sad as it is, before the economy start coming up and some clubs can start opening, these clubs are not opening up. People have went bankrupt. You have people that put their life savings into some of these clubs, and they had to go bankrupt. They're not going to be able to, they're done. So it's, you have to have a resurgence in the economy. When you got to look at this realistically. People, unfortunately, they want to be Pollyanna, and they want to say, well, I just want to go out touring, and we got to play this show, and we got to do this. No. That's not logical. Let's look at the steps in terms of being health and safety conscious, but also logical in terms of you have to have a resurgence in the economy, number one, where people are able to start making a living again, for money to be being put back into the economy for some of these, for clubs to start opening, because no one's fucking opening or reopening clubs during a pandemic. It's not going to happen. Not going to happen.
Yeah. I don't see. Yeah, it's depressing when you start going into it.
Yeah, it's very hard. Yeah. But hey, in order to bring it back to get the levity a little bit nicer, I showed you some of the stuff I had earlier. I'm going to show some vintage internal bleeding shirts. How's that?
Please do. Yeah, please do.
No, I don't want to see it. Frank, put your old shit away. No. So this is the Voracious Contempt original long sleeve shirt. Can you see it? Is it coming in clear?
Yep. Yeah, that's fine.
And you got the sleeve sleeve Submit to My Punishment, which are the lyrics I wrote for Goddess Subservience, off of Voracious, You submit to my punishment. Anyway, then you got the whole internal bleeding, all the logos, the logo down the sleeve. This is like in the back, which is the IB symbol, and it says unmatched heavy. This is brand new. This is 25 years old. Brand new.
Just on this curtain here, over to your right. Can you just pull it a bit? You got a bit of glare coming through.
Is that better?
Yeah, that's better. Yeah.
Okay, so you saw that.
Just yeah.
And we got the we didn't realize this shirt was going to be so purple. So for the tour, this is one of the tour designs that we had for the 6 Feet Under Immolation tour, and we had to go pick up our merchandise. But this is the inside of the Voracious Contempt CD, the tray. This is so thick. Joe, this ink is ridiculous. It's heavier than your gut. I'm telling you, it's that heavy. And then the back was, we had the artist did a full drawing, but we broke it up. It says total fucking contempt. U.S. Onslaught, 1996, because the tour was from
nice. Yeah.
Look at the little bold stool, Frank up there. And this again, this is brand new. And the sleeve print's got the logo sleeve prints, and then it's got the other sleeve print is the Voracious Contempt album cover logo. And then we have the Voracious. These are just some of the stuff I have. The Voracious Contempt. This is just a short sleeve shirt. And then this is from the Milwaukee Metal Fest. So this is the third show I played with the band. I still got the Milwaukee Metal Fest long sleeve. Man, we can these shirts.
That's awesome. That's
got the logo, got more the logo sleeve prints, and then because we were signed to Wild Rag Records. Richard C, motherfucker. Love Richard. He actually helped us out so much. Got the Wild Rags logos on there. Bada boom, throw that over there. And here's one of the original Perpetual Degradation long sleeves, pocket print logo. We used to do a lot of the pocket prints. Everybody liked the pocket prints.
Yeah, I like that design. I like that.
Yeah, well,
the logo there and the big thing on the back.
I'm glad you like it.
A lot of people do them now.
You can't have it, Joe. I'm sorry. But it's got the Perpetual Degradation. It says it, and then it's got like one of the little covers of one of the little swamp bastards over there. More logo sleeve prints, and then the back is kind of like internal bleeding monsters and the slam pits of the crowd. And it says total fucking slam. So yeah, we were using the slam tag before what it was.
Before it was cool.
And you want to know something now? We got hammered for it. Because back then a lot of people were like, "What's this stuff slam, man? This is bullshit," or whatever. And then then that's fine when we play a show and blow everybody away, and then everybody would shut their fucking mouths.
That's one thing I love about you, Frank, is that you've always stayed a fan. The amount of people that you speak to that are in bands, you go, "So what are you listening to? What have you been listening to lately, or what is some of your favourite albums?" And they'll go, "Oh, well, I don't really," they'll draw a blank. But you're band after band, and you're always posting on Facebook the latest T-shirt you bought, the latest CD that you're listening to, and you're not stuck in the past either. You're in there with the new bands, you're in there with new sounds, new genres, and you've always got something good coming up.
I still get excited. Like one of the guitarists from Wombath over in Sweden, his name is Hakan. He and I have been in touch a lot, and I wound up getting the promo from the record company for the debut album for his band Consumption, and the promo that I got was kind of fucked up. The files, there were some glitches, and I contacted the guitarist, and he was like, "Yeah, it's something." So he sent me the legitimate files. I would not have really kind of dug deep into that if I didn't really like it. And it's killer. It's like a mix, and I did a review. I posted it recently. It's like a mixture of like my favorite Carcass album, Symphonies of Sickness, with classic 90s death metal, and it's just like it's and some Impetigo. It's so good. And he's a guitarist in the band Henry Kane, which came out with like probably the best grind.
Yeah, I've got their album down here somewhere.
Next to the
new album.
It's probably the best.
Johnny Peterson, man, that guy's a fucking monster. He's in about
amazing. And then the guy Hakan, he's in the other band Rex Demoness, and I still get excited for all these new bands. My friend Mike out in Germany, he introduced me to this band Profanity recently, and I'd seen the band's logo over the years, maybe heard a few songs here and there, but really because we get so overwhelmed. And then the guitarist singer Thomas has gotten in touch with me, and he sent me the new album and the files, and I'm just, I'm blown away. Fragments of Solace, it's like this technical, brutal death metal. They started out as like an old school, like a death metal band in the 90s. Awesome stuff, and they just to see how they've risen with technicality. I still get excited with all these different types of bands, and it's cool. It's just cool to see, and I'm getting more into female vocal fronted bands, and I always was, like Sentinel Beast, but this band out of Pittsburgh called Lady Beast, I wound up getting a promo from the record company some months ago, and wound up getting all their whole back catalog, and the singer for Lady Beast, just phenomenal. It's like this vintage heavy metal, power metal-y type of stuff, and it's just, I don't stop growing in terms of the types of music that I like. I can't.
Check, female fronted death metal.
Oh, I never heard of them.
From Russia for Grace Disgraced.
That's
yeah, they're awesome though. I think. Do you watch Total Metal Rejection?
No, I don't even know what that is.
YouTube channel. Trez, the guy that runs it. On my channel, me and him spoke about Deeds of Flesh. About a week or two ago. Awesome guy, fucking awesome collection. And he put a video out of these, and I watched that video and ended up buying everything they've done. But yeah, check them out.
Okay,
awesome.
Cool.
And yeah, I'll send you a link to his channel as well. He's great, and he's from New York as well. So
Oh, look at that, a fellow tough guy.
fellow tough.
But yeah, no, it's just amazing with the different types of like the music sharing with the file sharing nowadays, and bands don't have to be in the same country to be able to record together. Like Bob Bacchus, classic drummer from Asphyx, who's a good friend of mine. He's a great guy, and he's in all these different types of bands. Infidel Reich, they're just recording their new album, but the Beast of Revelation, which is a Death Doom project that they just put out. The singer is John.
That's with yeah.
It's really heavy. It's super like doomy, heavy, plotting, like just depressing. It's actually it's beautiful music for me.
Yeah, his other band, John's other sort of side project, I guess, for him is Tribe of Pazuzu. You heard them?
Yeah,
Yeah, awesome band. So, yeah, you recently did. You wrote lyrics for a track on the new Morta Skuld album.
Yes.
Yeah. And was you lined up to do vocals on that? I don't know if I asked David about this. You came up in the conversation where you saw.
Yeah.
But was you originally lined up to do the vocals and it didn't reason, and they just kept the lyrics, or did you just write lyrics and that was that?
So what happened was Dave and I are, several years ago, they Morta Skuld, they did a tour. They did a U.S. tour with Embalmer, and I'm really close with the singer from Embalmer, Paul. He's a great friend, known him for years, and they came locally. What are you looking up there? You got a hornet's nest up there, Joe?
No, I've got an Embalmer CD. I was just going to pull out.
Okay.
Don't worry, yeah, it's up there though.
So they came through my neck of the woods. My brother-in-law and I, we went out to the show like we always do. In the good old days when there used to be shows, and Dave and I hit it off.
Feels like a lifetime ago, doesn't it?
Doesn't it? Yeah, I know. I can't wait till we can get back to that. But anyway, so Dave and I connected big time and remained close, talking on the phone, this and that. And then it was like about last year, towards the end of last year, I knew that they were recording. They were going to be putting out a new album for Peaceful, and Dave was writing lyrics, and he and I in touch a lot, and he was like, Frank, he's like, I got like writer's block. He's like, I'm trying to write these lyrics, and I'm just having a problem. I just can't come up with stuff, and it wasn't like he was necessarily asking for my help, but maybe subliminally he was. But he and I always have ideas going back and forth, and I've always talked maybe there'll be a future collaboration between me and Morta Skuld. So I said, Joe, as you can see, I mean, this conversation I could be talking till 3 o'clock in the fucking morning, but I gotta go pick up another refrigerator. So that's why I do this a little bit earlier. But I never have a shortage of ideas. I said, Dave, I'll write the lyrics to the song. I said, no pressure. If you don't want to use them, or if you want to use a part of them, whatever. He's like, are you kidding me? I was like, no, I'm not kidding you. I was like, you're my boy. Let me write the lyrics. So there was definitely some thought of maybe I was going to do some vocals, but it just for the song, it just didn't materialize for whatever reason. Doesn't matter. But the name of the song was originally called Soul Collapse, and I wanted to, because I think Morta Skuld with their brand of death metal, they started out in the early 90s and got, definitely some success in the mid 90s, and with their debut album, Dying Remains, obviously. They're just and Dave's such a great guy. I kind of wanted to do an homage with their other albums. So what I did was I started inserting some of their album names into the lyrics. And my whole thing was I was going to go old school because with the lyrics. So I was thinking definitely post-apocalyptic in nature. Maybe there'll be some real, maybe there'll be some satanic themes, or maybe there'll just be like massive destruction from like nuclear wars, bodies burning, skins peeling, dying remains as humanity fades, whatever. So he really liked them. I sent him to, and really it took me a few hours to bump out the lyrics. And he they changed the name of the song to Machines of Hate. It's the last song on the new album. And they kept all the lyrics. It's all the lyrics that I wrote. So in there, some of the chorus is Soul Collapse, and you'll see. But again, that was the original name of the song. They just changed it to kind of like it fit better with, I guess, the musical theme. So that was real special. And to get a credit on a Morta Skuld album, which is one of my favorite albums for the year, is real special. Like I said, it was a busy year for me. A few years ago, Jeff from Ton, the Ohio-based death metal band, he had said, Frank, would you ever want to, do guest vocals on a Ton album? And I was like, absolutely, Jeff. You've been a longtime friend of mine for many years. Ohio is a very near and dear scene for me because that was the first show I ever played with Internal Bleeding, was in Ohio. And so the fans, the bands, I am still close to this day. So to be able to be, so they wrote a song called Defect. They do all the music, and it's just my vocals and the singer from Fully Consumed. We're doing all the vocals on the song. So that album is out now. That's a scorcher of an album. It destroys. And then a Russian band from called Ossuary Anex, the guitarist Max, he had been in touch with me a few years ago. And this is while I was, gearing up for the Internal Bleeding tour and everything. And they sent me the music all the way back then. And they wanted me to sing on like multiple tracks. And when I do a guest vocal appearance, unless I'm in the band, Joe, I don't really want to detract in terms of it's not, Ossuary Rini. It's Ossuary Anex, I'm looking at to enhance the track. I don't want to detract, like, this is not my band. Ossuary Anex, they were I'm on 2 songs on the new album on Extreme Music, and it was real generous, a lot of vocals, a lot of long Rini signature growls. I was really blown away that the new album, they put a full picture of me in the album cover, in the booklet, as well as their Dave Sanchez, who owns the label, Dave Rotten, as many know him. He does guest vocals on
Yeah.
And so they put a picture of him in there, and then I got a full live shot that I gave him a few live shots from the IB tour from 2 years ago, and they chose one of them. And I did other vocals for this other band called Overdose of Bacon from Canada. That's going to be on a single. I don't know. It's probably going to come out in 2021. Oh, they're really sweet guys. I met them on the tour 2 years ago, and when they were in touch with me recently, those are the last vocals I did right when the pandemic hit. And like I told you earlier, I can be a battering ram sometimes. So the guy I record with, who's a few towns over from me, he's a little bit older. He wasn't having anybody coming into his studio at that time. But again, the pandemic, there was really very few restrictions in the beginning. So he didn't really want me in there, but I knew the band needed my vocals. So I just kind of said, well, let's just say I did my vocals. I said, come on, man, I'll bring my own cleaning supplies. He's like, okay, Frank, that's fine, but you're not going to have any contact with me. I'm going to be in the boardroom. But it came out great. And when I posted it on Facebook, I made like a little joke with the live pictures. I was like, I was like, this is, I'm the virus killer. This is my special vocals, the virus killer. Well, the band wound up printing up a shirt, and on the back they put like all these like severed heads on steaks or pigs, and it says the virus killer. It was just really sweet. So in terms of for 2021, I have I just had a band recently contact me. I had another band. I had a major band contact me. So we have a few things that maybe are in the works for the coming year. There's some, a lot of times some things, bands reach out to me and they want me on there and we're in touch, and then I don't hear boo from them. There's a few bands from the US that were going to have me on their albums, and then I get excited because I'm fans of the band, and I'm a big fan of these bands, even if they're small and underground. And then I see that the album was recorded, and I never got a call back or whatever. So whatever, it doesn't work for them. But it's just like, well, I get to the point where, because I get my hopes up, I'm like, well, then don't fucking waste my time. I'm sorry, but I am still humbled when people come back to me and they say they want me on their album. The fact that my vocals are still there, it doesn't show. They don't have. There's no sign of them giving out. They keep on getting stronger and stronger. Any tours are, I don't know. If IB ever came back to me, Internal Bleeding, and wanted me to do a future tour with them, whenever touring ever resumes, I would do it in a heartbeat, because I've always kept myself healthy. I don't abuse myself, and my vocals are still there. And I just love being out there with the crowd and the fans. So, and I'm blessed. I'm really blessed that the scene still appreciates what I have to offer and my influence, whether it's writing or, singing or anything like that. Because I love the scene so much, and I love the fans. The fans have been great to me over the years. And I've met so many different people throughout the country and throughout the world that, like you, it's incredible. And like I say, I'm just very thankful, and I'm very appreciative of every day.
Awesome, man. Well, Frank Rini, ladies and gentlemen, he pops up everywhere. Nick, check out an album review. Next death metal album you buy, check out the liner notes. You never know, he might be on it. So and
Joe,
Frank,
Joe, I didn't say that. I didn't say that the interview was over.
You said you need to go pick up a fridge.
I'm fucking with you.
Are you good to you carry on?
We can carry on. We can carry on for a few more minutes.
Yeah. Oh, that's okay. Okay, right, good. So I know you've got work to do. We
talked a while, but
we've covered quite a bit of ground as well. But
we learned a lot. Joe, thanks a lot for everything. Some of those bands that I really went through very fast, everybody, I may have got tongue-tied because I went through probably 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, about 60 bands. Maybe rewind, play them back a little bit, try and figure out phonetically what I was fucking saying with my accent, and check those bands out. Check their Facebook pages out. Check their YouTube links out. Anytime that I post a review, or anybody on Teeth of the Divine, again, I'm pushing you for Teeth of the Divine, a music link for the album is embedded in the review. So check it out. Now is a real difficult time for bands. It's a difficult time It's a difficult time for distros. Support the scene. Support these bands. Tell them that they're good. You enjoy it. Pick up a CD. Pick up a patch. Pick up a sticker. Pick up a toilet plunger. Pick up a back patch, a shirt, to help these bands out, because some of these bands are leaving the scene. Some of these members of bands are leaving the scene. This is what will help keep the bands just bobbing right now until more of a sense of normalcy comes back, so that these bands can continue onward and upward. So I encourage you all to do that, please.
Absolutely. And, this is what this channel's for. You can always discover something new here. And also check out Bandcamp as well. Even, if you're struggling yourself, you can't, you might not be able to get a T-shirt. Even if you just buy the band's album as a download. And some of them even have the name your own price thing. So even just chuck anything you can at a band. Just little things like that. It all adds up and it all keeps the band going. So, Anything else you want to add, my friend?
Dude, man, this has been great. I appreciate you setting aside time today to be able to do this to everybody out there.
Thanks to you as well for setting time to come speak to me. So it's been long overdue. And we'll put a link to the Teeth of the Divine below as well. So check that site out. And thanks for coming on, man. It's great talking to you. And we're going to do this again at some point.
Absolutely. Yeah, we can talk about a whole bunch of other things. Maybe you want to talk about a specific genre. Maybe you want to hear touring stories. Maybe you want to hear what goes into like preparing for a tour or an album, things like that. Joe, I'm an open book.
Oh, I definitely want to do a touring stories with you. Definitely want to do that. And I'm thinking maybe at Christmas we'll do our best of the year or something like that.
Hey, do you want to hear one touring story?
Go on then.
Okay. Here's a tour story. I'll give an older touring story. So we were on tour with 6 Feet Under and Immolation. We had a few dates over in California, and the guy who was setting up all the food, his name was Izad. He was just great. He set up all his food, but it was awesome also because that night after we played one of the shows, because we played at this venue 2 nights in a row, sold out both nights. But after that first show, it was really weird. I'm outside. I don't know what I was doing. I was going in the van to get some shit, and I was hanging out with Bill. And who fucking comes walking over but Gene fucking Hogan, the atomic clock. And he's got his little entourage around. And I was like to Bill, I was like, oh, that's Gene fucking Hogan, because I'm a huge Dark Angel fan. Huge. He looked at me, and I was like, you're Gene Hogan from the Dark Angel. He's like, you're that singer Frank who was up there with internal bleeding. He's like, holy shit, man, I've never seen a singer like that. And then he starts mocking me. I was in my glory. He was like, yeah, you were up there. You're like, and she's like, you're killing people. He's like, I've never seen anything like that. I was like, Gene, I just shit my pants. Thank you very much. That was like the greatest compliment. So cool. But anyway, when we got to the show, the promoter had laid out all his food. It's me. It's all internal bleeding. Got 6 feet under. Got immolation. Got the road crew, and it's a spread, Joe, of food. And you know, when you're traveling, you're hungry. You don't know when your next food's gonna be or when you're gonna eat. And it was all these cold cuts. It was these salads. It was breads, chips, fruit, and you know, from New York or whatever, everybody's looking. I'm hungry. Nobody's going up to take the first bite. So there I go. And I immediately get a plate. I start like piling shit on there. I got sandwiches. It's great. And I start coming back. And the tour promoter for comes over to me, and he was like, and this was 6 Feet Under's first album, Haunted, which for me, I'm a huge Chris Barnes fan. That's my favorite 6 Feet Under album still to this day. And the albums he was on with Cannibal Corpse are near and dear to me. Tomb of the Mutilated is my favorite Cannibal album, regardless. He said, he comes over to me and he's like, Chris Barnes goes first. I don't think you knew that. And, you know, 2020's hindsight, I was a lot younger back then. And I was just thinking, well, you know, and they are the headlining act, I guess, out of respect. So I do get that. And I said, I was like, oh, I'm sorry. So I looked at Chris Barnes, you know, who's like standing next to me. I was like, I didn't know what to do. I was like, gonna give it to him. I was like, do you want this? Do I put it back? He's like, Frank. He's like, it's fine. It's fine. He was a gentleman about it. He was really cool. But that was like, I wasn't used to that type of stuff. But that was, you know, I was like, wow, this is like, you know, kind of like in the beginning of the tour. Did I just like fucking like, you know, fucking pissed them off? But we all got along great. It was fine. But that was one little tour story. I got more past and present. But thank you for letting me share.
Awesome, man. No, I want some more from you. So yeah, we'll definitely speak again soon. And it's still Saturday, isn't it? It's Friday. Yeah. Enjoy the rest of the weekend. And I'll speak to you soon, man.
Sounds good.
Thanks a lot.